You're listening to the podcast of Rain City Church.
Hey, we're continuing our series called The FlipSide, where we're looking at teachings in the Bible, particularly by Jesus, about things that seem to be opposites. Jesus is saying, if you seem to do the opposite thing, you will actually find more joy, more life, more blessing if you truly trust me and walk in that direction. Today I want to talk to you about doubt. Can you be confident in doubt? Is that possible? Because it is difficult, I think, for us to just walk with 100% certainty, 100% confidence when we are talking about life, especially when we're talking about spiritual matters, right? I think that sometimes it's very difficult for us to just say I have 100% confidence, I don't have any doubt. Because it's hard for us, I think, to get places somewhere when we feel stuck in that we need that certainty. Several years ago, I was on my way to a conference down in Southern California. We had gotten on the plane, and there was a guy who was sitting across from me, across the aisle. And you know when you're in the airport and you're starting to get on the plane, especially as you're getting on the plane, when your spidey senses kind of start to tingle a little bit when you see somebody and you think like, that doesn't seem like a settled person. This could get weird on the flight, right? Well, this dude walked on and he was wigging, like he was not okay. But he sat down and we all, sat there, and then the flight attendants get up and they do their whole rigmarole and all that stuff. And then they say, okay, hey, pilot, we're ready to go, and we're ready for takeoff. And then as they're about to get going, this guy unbuckles, he stands up and he goes, stop! And, we're on an airplane. Like, everyone's heightened senses, so everybody's just like looking for a weapon immediately, And this guy, he's just freaking out. And he's going, stop! We can't go! And so, the flight attendants say, pilot, we can't, hold on, it's not ready, hold on, And so they go back, they talk to the guy, and says, I'm right there, I can hear him. And this guy, as they're trying to reason with this guy, they finally calm him down enough and get him to say, why? Are you freaking out? Why are you insisting that we stop? We have a whole plane full of people who are ready to go, and you refuse to go. And he says, I refuse to go until I can get in the cockpit and I can speak to the pilots and I can see that everything is in order and that our pilots are fully okay and can fly this plane with no problem. And then I need to get down, I need to see the engine. I need to get down on the tarmac and make sure that everything is okay with this plane before we leave. And obviously the flight attendants are saying, look, there's a whole department of people that's their only job, is to make sure that everything is okay. I assure you that your safety is our highest priority. I need to see it for myself. Show me. I cannot go until you show me. And so what did they do? They escorted the men from the plane, right? And then we all got in and buckled up, and then we took off. That's what happens when suddenly you have all kinds of doubt, right? You want to have 100% certainty, but is it possible for us to have 100% certainty? And yet, when it comes to the issue of faith, there is still this myth that persists. That is, in this corner, ladies and gentlemen, coming in at 150 pounds, we have faith. In this corner, ladies and gentlemen, coming in at 146, doubt, right? And then they're going to go at it and see who wins. Because in our minds, in our hearts, in our souls, that is what's at battle, right? They are against each other, head to head, toe to toe, duking it out. You either have faith or you have doubt. You cannot have both. And yet today, I want to show you, hopefully, that is absolutely false. That it is actually impossible for us to not have doubt and to also have faith. Because it's not called the Christian certainty, it's called the Christian faith, right? And so within faith, there is enough mystery there that there is probably some doubt. And is it okay to have that kind of doubt? Well, I hope to show you that yes, the answer is true. But before we even get into that, I just want to talk very briefly about this word faith, because faith, especially in our culture, means people who believe in Jesus, that we are people of faith, right? That's kind of had become sort of a code name. And that's true, but I want all of us to recognize that without a doubt, we are all people of faith. Whether you are a follower of Jesus, you believe in God or not, every single person is a person of faith. How do we know this? Well, look, this morning, there are millions and millions of people who woke up and they poured themselves a bowl of cereal, and then they poured some milk in, and then they took a bite of that cereal without giving it a second thought. That, my friends, is an incredible act of faith. We don't think about it, but it is. Because were you there in the factory where they made the Cheerios? Did someone spit in the Cheerios? We don't know. Did you meet the cow? Who gave you that milk? Do we know that they haven't been filled with hormones and all kinds of, are they diseased? I don't know. But we have put all kinds of faith in people, from the source of the food, to the transfer of the food, to the delivery of the food, to the storage of the food, to finally putting the food in our mouths. That is an incredible leap of faith that every single one of us took. This morning, if you got in any kind of a vehicle, whether you rode the bus, took a car, you biked here, no matter what, you have put an incredible amount of faith. In fact, you've put your entire life in the hands of a stranger. Because unless you were there in the factory where they built those cars or bikes or buses or whatever, you do not know that they are 100% safe. You are putting your faith in other people, in total strangers, right? That even today when you drove in, when there was a red light, you stopped at the red light. And without even recognizing it, you have put incredible faith in other drivers that they will also stop. That they won't just plow right through you and destroy you and your car. That is an incredible amount of faith. So when we're talking about faith, let's at least recognize that it's not just a word that comes with spirituality. It's a word that comes with the way you do life. That's the way it is biblically meant to be understood. Not as this bifurcated thing that's like there's the rest of your life and then there's your faith life, right? In the Bible, faith is your life. That's the way that we need to think about it. So for many people, every single person alive is a person of faith. It's just everybody's putting their faith in something. You all put your faith in those chairs that your butts are in right now. I didn't see anybody, I watched before, I didn't see anybody pick it up and shake it and, trying to think, is this going to fit me? Is it going to hold? I don't know, I hope so. We all put our faith in that chair this morning. Everybody is a person of faith. But when we're talking about spiritual faith, particularly Christian faith, and what the Bible talks about, I think that we need to get really clear on what that means, when it means this sort of all-encompassing, all part of your life faith. Because I think for many of us, we think faith means what I think. And that is not the whole of what faith means. I believe that there are two primary aspects of faith. One is belief, and the other is commitment. In faith, I believe the two primary aspects are you have belief and you have commitment. What does that mean? Well, belief is a product of the intellect. I think this. I have come to understand this. I know this. Maybe you have 100% certainty, maybe not. But even if you're doubtful, you have a belief that it is a product of the intellect. It's something that you have made a decision in your mind. And the reason why I think this is the only way we think about faith is because probably one of the most popular verses of faith comes from the book of Hebrews. The author says, "Now faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see." And so I think a lot of us believe that, faith is just what I think. That's what it means. But it's more than that, because it's also commitment. It's an act of the will. It is saying that when I commit, I bind myself, I make a promise, I make a vow, I devote myself to a friendship, a job, a spouse, to God. That commitment is always an act of the will. It's a choice that we make, and we choose to commit, and we show it in our lives. Book of James, it says, so you see, faith by itself isn't enough. Unless it produces good deeds, it is dead and useless. So then we have to ask ourselves this very basic question, which is very difficult. The question is basic, the answer probably not so basic. Do your beliefs change the way that you act? Do your beliefs change the way that you live? The things that you say, I have decided on these things in my mind, does that actually make its way from your mind into your life? Into your hands, into your feet, into your mouth, into your eyes, into the way that you go out and you live your life. And that's what I think is what it really means to have faith. It's just that constant wrestle and constant battle. I'm trying to believe these things and to live these things out. There's no such thing as perfectly believing and perfectly acting. The only thing we've ever seen of that is Jesus. Everybody, we're all in the same boat, trying to figure this out together. But we have to stay asking that question. Do my beliefs change the way that I live? Because you have to have both of those things. And I think that those two things often will go at battle with one another. And that's what people are so fed up with when it comes to Christianity, especially today, is that we have a lot of people who are who say, I absolutely believe this. This is absolutely what I believe. And yet their lives show that that's not really true, right? They don't live that way. It doesn't change their life. And so we call those people hypocrites, right? And so we find that frustrating, especially when we're trying to marry those two things together. But you really have to have both of those things to truly be people of faith. Because think about the way that we use the word even now. Probably the way outside of spirituality that we talk about faith and faithfulness the most is when it comes to marriage. Let's see, it's 2019. So in August, my wife and I will have been married 19 years. So this is us 19 years ago when we were children. We are so young and naive, and there should be a law of minimum marriage age, because we did not know what we were doing. We were just let's just get married so we can have sex, and then it's just, and it turns out there's more to it. And so, we were, it's I remember that day. I remember standing there, and I made a vow. I made a promise. I made a commitment to my wife there publicly at a wedding to say, I will be faithful to you. Now, I got a ring that day and made those vows. Everybody seemed to be real happy about it. And we walked away and said, love you, honey. You're my number one. I want to love you and serve you and be together. I'm going to need 2 days. I'll be right back. And then I flew to Canada and I talked to my girlfriend. I'm listen, I'm married now, but I don't think it needs to change this relationship. I think we can still make this work. It's no problem. I'm just going to go back home. She doesn't need to know. She thinks I'm on business. It's fine, right? And then I'm going to keep that going for as long as I possibly can. Now, and then people look at me and they're like, yeah, but you say you're married. And I'm like, why are you being so judgmental? You don't know my heart. And I keep my secret Canadian family going, even to this day, right? What is that? That is being unfaithful, correct? By the way, that's not true. I see a lot of faces now, just that's all a joke. And it's totally, okay. If that were true, I would not be faithful to my wife, right? We would all, I believe, very simply stack hands as saying, you are not being faithful. Why? Because I can say all day long, you guys, I believe I'm married. I have paper to prove it. The IRS sees it. I have a ring. We live in the same house. We are married. And yet, my actions do not show that is an actual commitment, right? And so when those things are at odds, I believe that's what is the most at odds when it comes to our faith. So I think in our day and age, we think it's just what you know. A lot of times people like to use fancy words like doctrine. It's all about doctrine, man. Take me to the doctrine class. You guys have a 12-week doctrine class? Yeah, it's called do your life. It's called learn what Jesus wants, and let's actually try to start committing to it and living it out, as opposed to learning some really fancy words so we can tell everybody that we know. No, we know. When we started the church, we started in the movie theater, and there were people from different churches that I won't name, but they came from around the area, and I would go out, and they would make a beeline to me in the lobby after the service, and they would say, "Oh, hey, welcome, we're so glad you guys are here, I knew, and da-da-da. What's your doctrine?" I'm like, "Whoa, okay, well, what do you mean?" And then they would say, "We're here from fill-in-the-blank church to learn your doctrine. What is your doctrine?" Basically, they're the doctrine police, right? To say, we want to let you know if you're right, okay? And my answer to that is always, I don't know, follow us around for a couple weeks. You tell me what our doctrine is, Your doctrine is how you live. It's not just what you believe, it's also how you act. Is that the way that you are acting? Because I think for a lot of us, we get stuck in this idea that when it comes to beliefs, I think the reason why we love that so much is because we have books and we have fancy words and we have all this stuff, then suddenly we can have 100% certainty. I have 100% certainty that this is true. And yet, do you? Do you have 100% certainty? I don't think you have 100% certainty about almost anything in your life. Because more often than not, we need to make 100% commitment without 100% certainty. When I married my wife, I did not have 100% certainty that we would be 19 years down the road and still married. My parents divorced when they were 17 years into marriage. And I knew at one point they felt exactly the same way we did. I love you. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. And then something happened along the way, or probably a lot of things happened along the way. And I wonder, oh my gosh, is that going to happen to us? I don't have certainty. I don't know if we should do this. And then I start freaking out. And yet, I took the step of faith and said, no, I want to commit to you because I believe we're married and I want to act like it as well. I want to be faithful. Now, when it comes to faith, I think everybody can agree that a crisis of faith is going to happen. Whether you are a believer in Jesus or God or not, there is a time where you will come against something in your life that doesn't seem to harmonize with your worldviews or what you thought the world should be or how God should be. And usually, a lot of times, it has to do around pain and suffering. And we wonder, where is God in this? And you begin to have some kind of a crisis of faith. And I think that it's great for you. You should all, by the way, I highly recommend it, have a crisis of faith. Do it. Why? Because it means that you're thinking. It means that you're not just blindly following and trying to shove stuff back in a closet, that you are openly trying to process and wrestle with these doubts, with things that are going on. Here's the thing. Here's where I want to encourage you, is this. A crisis of faith can either occur within faith or against it. Because I've seen people I have a friend who went over and spent the summer in Africa, in one of the countries in Africa, just serving there and doing some pretty incredible stuff, and then came back and said, I don't know that I can believe in God anymore because I've seen so much pain and suffering, and I wonder, where's God? And so they pushed their faith away to another place, and then they're living over here in a place of doubt and questioning and thinking, again, like we said before, in this corner we have faith, and in this corner we have doubt. And until you figure out all of this doubt stuff, then you can come back over to the faith side. And yet, I'm about to show you that that is not the way the Bible even talks about faith and doubt. What does Jesus have to say about it? I want to talk to you just briefly about a story in the book of Mark. It's a really beautiful story. It's a story about a father who's had a son that since he was very young, this son has he's had serious convulsions. He harms himself. He is not, in his right mind all of the time. And we don't know what it is. It's 2,000 years ago, so medicine isn't what it is today, but they call it demonic. And so they're saying, we need help. That we are not getting answers. And so this father, he is desperate for help. And so he he's heard about this guy Jesus, and he takes his kid to Jesus' disciples. And he says, where's Jesus? Can Jesus help? And they said, well, Jesus is up on a mountain right now, but we can help you. We've seen Jesus do this. We know what he says. We know how he says it. We can do this. And with a great act of faith, the disciples get there and they start praying for this boy. Well, this is also in a very public place. And so a crowd gathers around, and there's some religious leaders there who are very opposed to Jesus and this movement and his disciples. And so his disciples, in a great act of faith, begin to pray for healing for this boy. And nothing happens. And he isn't healed. And they're saying, well, we've seen him do this. We know how this works. Why isn't this working? Why is this working? And then the religious people start to be like, yeah, how's that going? Yeah, it turns out this Jesus stuff is stupid. Turns out it's a scam. Yep, turns out it doesn't work at all, right? And then what does it turn into? This big public internet war, right? They're Twitter warring with one another. In the meantime, what is happening? Everybody's forgot the person that we're there to actually try to care for. Does this sound familiar? Sound like our culture? Yeah, exactly. We forgot about what we're actually trying to do so we can prove a point because we believe this. No, we believe this. In the middle, who gets left? Who gets completely ignored? And then Jesus shows up. And then Jesus says, "What's up, guys?" And they fill him in on what's going on. And he shuts down the crowd. And then he goes to the Father. And he says, "What's going on? What's happening here?" And the Father says, "My son, he needs help. We've tried all kinds of things and it doesn't help. And we asked your disciples and they couldn't figure it out. And we need you to heal him. We need you to deliver him from this pain. We need you to do it." And then Jesus says, "Bring me the boy." And so the Father does, and as he does, the boy goes into violent convulsions again. He's rolling around on the floor, and he's foaming at the mouth, and everybody's quiet now because, again, the crowd who is trying to prove their rightness between one another is reminded again, oh, wait, there's a person here. This is actually something that involves somebody's life. Now everybody's watching to see what this Jesus guy is going to do. Jesus asks, how long has he been doing this? And the dad says, a long time, since early childhood. And there's a lot of times that he's nearly died. And then the Father asks what I believe is at the heart of every single person here. He says, have mercy on us and help us if you can. Jesus, this is my boy. I pray to God for him every day. For years, I've told God I'll do anything. You can even take my life if you want. I promise you anything, but please heal him. And nothing happens. Jesus, every time a new rabbi comes around, every time a new healer, every time a new miracle cure, I get my hopes up again and I put myself in that vulnerable place again of saying, can you help? Can you help? I believe, I believe, I believe. And every single time we've been disappointed. Every single time it doesn't work. And then we hear about you, Jesus, and we say, maybe this is it, I don't know. And then I show up and I'm trying to, be vulnerable, put my hopes up again, and I bring them to your disciples and nothing's happening and it's crushing. Do you know how hard it is to ride that roller coaster when we're talking about my son? The up and down, I have hope, and then nothing happens, and I have hope again, and nothing happens. And I am so well acquainted with disappointment, I'm having a really hard time ever hoping. And then you show up, and I feel like, fine, one more time. We're going to give it a shot because I love my son so much. If you can do this, would you? And then Jesus replies, what do you mean if I can? Anything is possible if a person believes. And at this point, I think if I'm the Father, I'd be like, I'm in, 100%, Jesus. You do your thing. I'm all about it. But thankfully, the Bible gives us a very honest response. And this Father says, I do believe, but help me overcome my unbelief. Because I do believe and I doubt. I do hope, but I have great fear. I do pray, but I waver often. Maybe that's exactly where you're at today. Maybe you feel stuck. Maybe you're in a point where you're saying, I have tried so many times, I've gotten my hopes up so many times, and I'm so well acquainted with disappointment, I don't think this is ever going to happen. I don't even want to put myself through the pain of getting my hopes up again, only to have them crushed. I believe that more often than not, that's what is at the opposing corner of faith. It is not faith and doubt. I think it is faith and hopelessness. That we have lost hope in a real and loving God. I think that for so many of us, we've lost the perspective that we are still in the middle of this great story. That God, the God that Jesus talks about, who is a good and loving Father, is moving this story to end in the most incredible climax of joy and love that any story has ever finished in. And we forget sometimes that we're right in the middle. And we want to hope, and sometimes God intervenes right now in the middle. And he brings that great burst of hope and changes our trajectories in those different kinds of ways. But I think sometimes we miss out on the bigger picture, that this is not the end. Because everything works out in the end. And if it's not working out, it's not the end. That Jesus will wipe our tears away when we enter into eternity, into that great, incredible reunion with him and all of our loved ones to live forever. But I want to ask you this one question. Are you stuck? Do you feel like you are stuck and that you are not moving because you have doubts? You can't be 100% certain. Because that guy who was in the plane, right? What happened to him? He had doubts and he had questions. And I'm not saying they're not valid questions. Is this a safe plane? Are we going to make it? I'd prefer not to die today, right? That's a valid thing to ask. And then what happened? Well, you can't see that. You just have to trust. You have to have the faith. And he refused. And so he stayed while everybody else was able to move on. Are you stuck? Are you stuck because you want to have 100% certainty in something that you can't? You have to at some point have faith in the character of this incredible God. That you say, I believe it, and it's moving into the way that I live. That I believe you, God, and I want to move on. I want to pray for you right now. I want to ask the band to come up. Why don't you just close your eyes, and if you want to participate, just close your eyes and just quiet your heads, quiet your hearts. If you don't want to participate, I'll just ask you to be respectful of those around you. And I just want to ask you this. Are you stuck? Are you stuck in some point in your life where you are just doubting? You need that 100% certainty before you can move on. And Jesus is calling you to a place where he says, try it out. Try it out. Test the fruits. See if this really is the better way to live. See if God really is a good and loving Father. See if your life truly does improve in an incredible soul level when you begin to truly not just believe what the Bible teaches, what Jesus teaches, but you actually begin to put it into action. You commit to it. So I just want to ask right now, for those of you that are here, I just want to pray for you specifically. If anybody here is struggling in that place of feeling stuck in your doubt, would you just raise your hand real quick so I can pray for you? Yeah, lots. Yep. Yeah, all over. Let me pray for you right now. God, you know the hearts of all of us, and you know that there is doubt that lives in there, and sometimes that doubt greatly overshadows the light that you have given us. God, I pray that for those of us that are looking for 100% certainty, that we know we can't find that, but that we can find your presence. That we can find that you are alive and well and so close to us. That you love us, that you care for us, that you want us to be yours. God, I pray for those of us that are so staunch about our beliefs, and yet we don't have any evidence to show that we're committed to it. God, I pray that you would help us recognize those places and to lovingly urge us into a place of actually trying to put it into place and to put it into action. That we would not be afraid of that, God, that we have doubts, we wonder, and God, we want to see if this is really the best way to live. God, I pray that you would help us get going, not just be stuck because we got off the plane, because we don't have 100% certainty, but that we're moving on because we, even in our doubt, we are showing faith through our actions. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
We hope you enjoyed this message. For more information and resources, go to RainCityChurch.com. Thanks for listening.